Okay.
All right, this is Jim Howard with True Christian Talk. I'm in an undisclosed bunker, and Kevin is somewhere in the country in an undisclosed bunker, and I'm hoping that he will be with us really soon. I have Wendy helping us on the other side. We're trying to do this with Facebook Live at the same time. If something happens and we do not or we are not able to continue with the Facebook Live portion of this, then we will be bringing this out to YouTube. We hope we are. We will see what happens when we start to talk about what we're going to be talking about. So get ready. We're going to be talking about a couple of different issues. If Kevin can, he's going to come on later, but I'm going to get it started. I want to thank you for coming out to True Christian Talk. This is where we can get together and we can talk about issues that are going on in the country through a Christian point of view. Now, I'm not saying that my point of view is always right, but I try my best to base my Christian attitude from what I read from the Bible and how the Bible guides me. I will tell you that Wendy, my beautiful wife, is trying to assist me on this. So if you have questions or you have comments that you want to say, please type them in the Facebook comments. And then Wendy will interrupt me and tell me the things that you're saying or putting out there. We're not in Kevin's studio, as you can tell. Like I said, I'm in a bunker somewhere so that I can say this out loud. Kevin just happened to be in Georgia, and so we're trying to put this together the best that we can. We feel that our conversation is important, so that's why we continue to do this every Thursday. So let's get started. If you're not living underneath a rock, you know that this election, the issues with the election, and I'm gonna call them issues at this point in time, because it's one of these things of where we just we have we have too much going on. There's too much information. There's too many videos. There's too many affidavits. There's all these different things that are out there that so far have been unsuccessful about doing anything, any type of change with what the election or where it's going. If we understand this correctly and if we see this correctly, then what's happening right now is that so far no court is going to do anything to overturn what it looks like right now. Now, this is where we should be paying attention and this is where we should be focusing all of our energy on. And when we talk about these things, there's two different places that we need to be working with. And one of these places is the Texas lawsuit that is going on right now, where 17 other states have joined in with Texas, making it a total of 18 against the lawsuit is against the voting, what happened in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Now, I hate to read uh, you know information or a court docket, but I think it's important that you understand what this is all about, what is going on in this lawsuit against these states. And it's, if you can bear with me on the brief, okay, because the brief is kind of, I mean, the summary is kind of what is going on. And what Texas has said, they're raising constitutional questions of great public importance that warrant this court's review. First, like every similar provision in the Constitution, the separation of powers provision of the electoral clause provides an important structured check on government designed to protect individual liberties. By allocating authority over presidential electors to the legislation thereof in each state, the clause separates powers both vertically and horizontally, and it confers authority on the branch of state government most responsive to democratic will. Encroachment on the authority of the state legislators by other state actors violate the separations of power and threaten individual liberty. I'm going to read the last paragraph, then we're going to kind of break this down in simple English terms. The unconstitutional encroachment of the authority of the state legislators in these cases raised particularly grave concerns. For decades, responsible observers have cautioned about the risk of fraud and abuse in voting by mail. And they have urged the adoption of statutory safeguards to prevent such fraud and abuse. In the numerous states identified in this bill of complaint, non legislative actors in each defendant state repeatedly stripped away the statutory safeguards that the legislators therefore had enacted to protect against fraud in voting by mail. These changes removed protections that responsible actors had recommended for decades to guard against fraud and abuse in voting by mail. The allegations in the bill of complaint raise important questions about election integrity and public confidence in the administration of presidential elections. This court should be granted plaintiff against the to file the bill of complaint. Now, let me break it down in easy English so that you can understand what's going on. What they are saying, what these states that have jumped on this complaint, Texas filed it, the other states joined in on it. What they are saying is that each state has a responsibility to protect the voters' rights during these elections. And what has happened, these states that Texas has filed suit against has said that you changed the rules while the election was going on and that you did not go through the proper procedures to do this. Listen, Florida is a state that allows absentee ballot. Okay, but here is the difference. You have to request it, you have to tell them why, and you have to sign for it with some sort of identification that they realize that it is you. My daughter used it this year because she is over in college in Daytona, where she votes is in Pasco County. So she requested an absentee ballot, got one, and filled it out and sent it in. And they do verification that she is a person that legitimately requested one, that they have a signature on file, her signature on file, and they did a comparison to see the signature. Now, what they're saying in this complaint is Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin just flooded the market with absentee ballots. Did not check and see if the person who lives at that house is a registered voter, if the person that lives at that house is the same registered voter that voted 8 years ago. They don't care. They did not look at if people have passed away, have died, or anything like that. And we have found, and in this suit that they go against, they have found legitimate complaints about the balloting of the absentee balloting in these states, enough that you would void those electoral college, those numbers in those 4 states, which, if the Supreme Court got involved, then you would see that it would have to change. It would have to do something because Biden would not now be in the lead. So that's what they're saying. We need to pay attention to what is happening with this. We are inundated with people that have complained about, I mean, if we look at the video from Macon County, Georgia, where they pushed all the observers out and then started bringing out boxes upon boxes of ballots and started running them through, that's a concern. We all understand that, but nobody wants to overturn something that they know is wrong right now, because I'm telling you, this is much deeper than we've ever seen. This is going to be something that we will be living with forever, for the rest of our life. If this is not corrected, there is no way that we're going to be able to have a fair election from this point on. I do not think you understand the seriousness, the grave seriousness of what is happening right now. And until we get this straight, until we get this exactly where it should be, every legal vote should be counted. But if my legal vote that I voted for in a presidential election is overturned by illegal votes, then that's unconstitutional. That should not happen. The other thing behind it is you have to go through certain ways of making a law. You just can't come out and say, this is the law. I mean, we're running into this all over the country with these states closing down businesses without any type of law at all. They're calling it, for safety reasons, but the science doesn't back it. They're not doing it. I mean, you can have Walmart open, you can have, you can have Home Depot, you can have Sam's Club, you can have all these different places open, but yet places that science has shown is not where the increase of the COVID-19 virus has been, pointed out that this is a hot spot, has to close down. And that includes restaurants, churches. I mean, they're starting to come back against the churches again. And here we go. This is why we're out here talking about what is going on in the country and around the country. So we have to be careful with what we're paying attention to. Now, the second thing, I said there were two things we need to pay attention to. The second thing is that we need to pay attention to what is going on in Georgia, because there's two seats left open in the Senate. And these two seats are going to decide whether or not the House and the Senate are one side of the coin or the other. I mean, it is going to point out whether or not that the Democrats are going to have control of both the House and the Senate. And we have seen what happens when the president plus the House and the Senate are controlled by all the same party. We have seen issues with that before. And so my thing about it, understand, I don't have a problem if one the House or the Senate is controlled by one party and the other is controlled by the other party. I have no problem with that. I really don't, because it causes us to do checks and balance. And unless we do those checks and balance, it's very difficult. It's very difficult for us to control what is going on. They can run something through that will end up being unconstitutional, hurt all of us. We have to abide by it until it's either taken to the Supreme Court. And to give you an example of this, and I want you to understand, Obamacare was pushed through. Democrats said, we don't know what's in the bill. We won't know about it till we pass it, and then we'll read it and figure it out. That's crazy. That's nuts. That's like driving blind. I don't know that I'll make it until I get in the car, put on my shield, and I can't see anything, and I just get in there and just drive. If I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. That's crazy. But what happened? They tried to force religious organizations to provide contraceptives when they said that was against their religious beliefs. So it ended up having to go to the Supreme Court, which I don't think you understand, takes up tax dollars to go through, but it had to go through the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to come back and say, you cannot violate somebody's religious beliefs. But we had to go through that. That's because the document wasn't read and studied and everybody was looked at. So what we're having happen right now is we're having an important election that's going to happen in Georgia. And of course, Georgia is a part of the suit because they want to get it straight before these elections happen. We want to make sure that we have a fair, legitimate vote when it comes to these two positions in Georgia. So it is a concern, and you need to be listening and you need to be paying attention. But please there's so much that is what I call a white noise that distracts us from where everything is going. I agree with all the evidence that shows there was voter fraud out there. I'm sorry, there's just too much evidence. I mean, I kind of am concerned about what we're seeing in the government. I'm really, really it's one of these things that because of everything that is going on, I feel that we have an issue here. And I don't think Christians, I don't think Christians really realize what is about to happen. What is about to happen? We talked about this once before. We discussed it once before, and we really want to come back out and now talk about it one more time, because I think you really have to pay attention to the underlying issue and where we're going and what we as Christians are about to face if everything goes kind of against us. Like I said, I have no problem if we have a House and a Senate that are two separate parties. I think that's fine. because there's a check and balance there. There's a check and balance on what we need to be looking at and what we need to be paying attention to, and the laws that are going to be passed. I don't think you realize the danger that we are in if these laws get passed, or if the two Republicans don't win to keep the check and balance in the government about what we're going to be looking at. It could be very scary. It could be. We have already seen, and I don't want to jinx this, so I'm not going to say anything, but we have already seen social media start to cut out conservative Christian talk. We've already seen it happen. I'm watching to see when it might happen to true Christian talk. And when it does, we will figure out another way, because God has really put Kevin and I together to do this. I mean, you have to look at his divine intervention on what goes on in these issues. And Kevin and I came together because of something completely different. And yet now we see that our point of views are this important and valuable to you. You may not feel that way. And it's kind of like one of these things, you can turn the channel. That's quite all right with me. But we see these things that we're trying to put out here so that you understand what is going on and you understand what is happening. So, please listen to us. We study this. We look at it. We, I, God has given me this job to be out here to protect the churches and also to protect other Christians. And that doesn't just go from the houses of worship, it goes outside the houses of worship. Because what we don't understand, we think that we can build a little cocoon to where our houses of worship are protected. But unfortunately, if the government has their way, they can start to come against you. And the country that we grew up loving is no longer the country that we knew. And this is very scary. Now, I'm going to change gears a little bit because I want to talk about some of the things. And I really am a person that is against conspiracies. But unfortunately, when I look at the evidence, there is really something very, very scary going on in the background that I think that we as Christians need to have a point of view, and we need to be, listen, go to your knees and pray about this. Go into a room and pray about what you should be doing as a Christian to help our country get back to the great country that it is and that the great country that it should be. Because if we don't, we're looking at some bad times here. We're looking at some terribly bad times. And I don't like to be a gloom and doom person. I really don't. But I think we have to be realistic with what we're seeing going on. And if we do not pay attention to what is happening, and this has been going on for some time, and we as Christians have allowed this to happen. So we need to start thinking about this and paying attention to what's happening and maybe start to make some changes, make our voice be heard. Because if we don't use our voices, which is what God gave us, use our voices to protect our religious freedoms and anybody that it is discriminating against, we need to be as Christians to be, on this all the time. And so we have to start paying attention to what is going on in the news, what is going on in our government, and we have to start making stands. Now, I think we made a big stand by we showed how much we voted for this president. We know that it's over 71 million people voted for this president. We see right now that Texas has got a lawsuit that has 17 other states that have joined it. That is a big number. That is not something that you just dismiss. But the problem that we have, and the thing that scares me more than anything else, is have we created a monster that we cannot control? Now, when I was in law enforcement, we talked about the subculture that lives out there. Now, people who have never been in law enforcement don't understand exactly what that term means. And what it means is there are people out here that could care less about your human rights. They could care less about anybody's God-given rights. And so we kind of call it the subculture that lives out there. And until you live as a police officer, as a social worker, as a hospital person, a first responder, you truly do not see the subculture that lives out there. It is one of these things that you have to walk a mile in these people's shoes so that you start to see what is going on in the background. Because if you really truly saw it, it would concern you and scare you. I tell you, when I start talking about the subculture, some people go, I don't even want to walk out of my basement anymore. And I understand that. But see, at one time, I really felt like the subculture was lower class, middle class families, the broken families, the single parent families, the ones that kids don't have a chance because they don't have the guidance that's needed there to help them out. I can't say this over and over again. When I went back to police work, one of the things that concerned me the most was having juveniles that I would talk to and find out that they don't even know who their father is. Their mother's not around half the time. It broke my heart when I listened to these kids. And this is one of the things that we look at in the subculture. We've seen it happen. It started in the 60s. It has continued on in the 70s. It's out here. There is this subculture that we have to really, as Christians, we need to work on how do we help those in this environment. And I'm all for that. We do so many different things in our church to help those out here that do not have. As people like to say, they're the haves and they're the have-nots. And what I hope that we do is those that think they are have-nots, they are not. Under God's grace and God's beautiful plan for all of us, they are also children of God. They're a part of his heaven. They need the same things and the things that we need. And we need to be administering to them because that's the Great Commission. Go ye therefore out to everybody. It does not matter who it is, and preach the love of Christ. So those are the things that I would like to see us do more of. And I would be more than happy to come together with any group that want to look at this at a Christian point of view and not parties, not parties. I don't care what party you're with, as long as you can understand that there's a Christian point of view. That is the difference. There is a point of view that bases its view on the Bible and not the politics or what the politics have to say. But here's what I'm concerned about. There is a subculture also in the politics. And we have been fed lines. And I want to say this to my liberal side, my friends that are on the liberal side. I really want you to do your own research and start looking at things because they have been feeding you lies and they have been setting this up for some time. And until we wake up and until we see this and until we get our stuff straight, there is going to be these things are going to continue to grow. And we are going to be in a country that is not as free as it used to be. I would see that freedom of speech is going to be shortened. And if you don't agree with the powers to be in the political point of view, in the political leadership, you're going to be shut down. It's already starting now. We can look at social media and see how they've started cutting conservative talk. I miss the old days. I miss the old days when reporters were reporters. And if a story broke, you wanted to find out as much information as you could on that story. I mean, when I saw All the President's Men, which was on, Nixon, the Watergate scandal, man, I wanted to be a reporter. I wanted to be out here doing this investigative stuff to get those guys that did those type of things like that. Now, in a sense, you can kind of say I did that because I went with police work and I did investigations on things. But if you gave me a lead in the police department and I was able to work on it to kind of get it out here, then that's what that was the excitement of the hunt. But yet, reporters aren't reporters anymore. They're commentators. They're entertainers. They say what they want without getting in the weeds and finding out the truth. They take one thing and they bend it to their way, and that's how they are. And listen, this is on all sides. Please don't think that I'm picking on what they may call fake news. It's on all sides. It's no matter who you listen to. It's no matter who you pay attention to. If you watch CNN, MSNBC, there's just as much problem going on in Fox News, where they will not allow true talk, or they will not do their own investigation, or they will not allow both parties to have their say so that we, as the American citizens, can go out and make up our own minds. So because of that, it's one of these things that we have been lied to. We've been lied to for so long, it's unbelievable. And until we get out here and start truly looking at it, it we're, we're just going to be led. We're going to be led like sheep. We are. We're the sheep right now. I can't say it. I mean, I don't, sorry if I hurt your feelings, but because we have not taken a stance. Now, how do we, okay, we'll get into how we take a stance later on, but we have not taken a stance against some of the things that are going on out here. Now, when President Trump started running, he said he was going to drain the swamp. That's the political subculture that we're talking about. That is the haves and the haves not. My buddy that I run with, he talks about all the time that all politics is corrupt. And I just wanted to believe that that's not true. I was still naive in my thought process that, you know, we've got these politicians that we voted in and we've listened to them and they've talked about, you know, they say those eloquent words that we want to hear and we vote them in. And then the next thing you know, they go up to Washington, D.C. on something that we think that they talked about, that they said that they would protect. And they get up and start making rules that doesn't have anything to do with what we were talking about. We had so many Republicans that said they would vote against the Obamacare and did nothing about it. Did nothing about it. In fact, voted for it instead of trying to get rid of it. So my buddy Kevin's trying to get on from his undisclosed location. So we'll hope that he gets here pretty soon. But we have seen this happen over and over and over again. We heard politicians say, "Hey, we're going to keep certain people out. We're going to keep those people that have an agenda, that like to pay for your trips, or like to do those things. We're going to try to keep those people out." They haven't done it. They haven't done it yet. They still, you don't go into politics and come out without making money, which I like I said, it's just one of these things that flabbergasts me. I mean, excuse me, that's why we don't have limited terms on all these people that are out here doing these things. I mean, I mean, they're going to stay in there for life if they can. We saw a couple of them pass away this last year, 2020. They're going to stay in there as much as they can. So, it's one of these things of where there is the swamp out here. And this is the subculture that we're talking about. And look who just showed up from this undisclosed location.
What's up,
Mr.
James?
Haggerty,
how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well there, Kevin. How are you?
Okay, how's everybody out there in True Christian Talk Land? How's the message going?
So far, I've got Wendy on the other end. She has not interrupted me and said anything, so maybe nobody's out there yet. But
I have. I can't tell you where I am, but I can tell you where I'm not, and I'm not in the woods in South Georgia playing with guns, because my guns were stolen in a boating accident in the Sonora Desert last year. So that's not what I'm doing.
You're going to be the first one they come to. You know that, don't you? You're not supposed to say anything about it. So yeah. Let's continue. I was talking about the subculture that we have in what police departments look at what they call the subculture. Mm-hmm. And that is the culture of people that really don't care for anything but themselves and will take advantage of people. They'll rob, steal, they'll do all those things like that. That is a culture that we have out there. And the police department knows of it, and we see it, and we combat it all the time. But what I was talking about, there is a subculture also in DC, and that's where President Trump went in to drain the swamp. And the thing of it is we know, that there are too many people out here, too many politicians, that one of the reasons why they want to go there is to get rich. That's just all there is to it. And they get these lobbyists that come in, and these lobbyists give them money or pay for their trips, all sorts of little, nuances there, nice things. So, he wanted to go in and drain that. So it's just one of these things of where, if we don't drain the swamp, we're looking at some very difficult times. And I hate to use this term. I truly hate to use this term because you've used it multiple times, and I'll let you add to it. But I hate to use this term of civil war
Yeah.
because I just see Republican states not wanting to allow the federal government to dictate things that do not help their people in their state. Now, we're not talking about a war. Please do not put that's don't go buy your guns and get your ammo and all that stuff like that and want to join the militia. We're talking about something that we will see states not wanting to abide by federal law. We've already seen it. I mean, think about it. Governors have passed ordinance or whatever it's called, where they say, hey, we're going to shut it down. And if you see something, if you see your neighbors getting together with more than 6 people for Thanksgiving, we want you to call the police and report them. And police departments have come back and said, we're not going to honor it. We're not going to do it. So it's one of those things that it could happen out here. It could be one of these things.
Well, we saw in Virginia a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, some very strict Second Amendment restrictions that were legally passed by the Virginia legislature, uh, and immediately, something like 97 counties in Virginia found ways around it. So they flat said, well, we're not confiscating guns in Virginia. I can tell you that. Now, the problem you see there is, this is why we have an electoral college. Maybe we could use them in the states too. The people, the Virginians that live close to D.C. that are around the Beltway there were particularly left wing, and that was the most of the population in Virginia that voted that ended up getting these laws passed. But what you saw were sheriffs were deputizing everybody that lived in their county, so that they were now legally deputies in that county, and so you couldn't take their guns. So freedom. My point is this: freedom will always find a way. The difference in America than we saw everywhere else where they tried this kind of totalitarian government is you can't unring the bell of freedom, right? We know what it tastes like here. It's the reason people risk their lives to sneak in here. Nobody's risking their lives to sneak out of this place. So it'll divide up into states' rights. Will the states then stand on not enforcing federal laws? Will some of the states? I don't know if you read your list yet, but will some of the states secede in essence, at least in theory? Uh, so I don't see. And then if history bears itself out, will the federal government then crack down on the states that try to secede, and where you have an actual civil war, or will it be kind of skirmishy? My guess is it's going to be more like skirmishes. So you won't see it in deeply red states, and as much as you'll see it in purple states and states that border, where red and blue kind of border each other. But I don't see this ending peacefully, and that worries me.
Well, and I know that that's your feeling about it. And I'm hoping that it doesn't go that far, but I'm not going to say that it isn't. Look, I can tell you probably if things go south, that we will probably see more Waco incidents happen, Ruby Ridge incidents happen, those type of incidents where people get together and say, hey, I'm not a part of the federal government. I'm a part of the state government. Now,
Yeah.
where we run into some of these issues that you're talking about, let's take a look at Oregon right now. Oregon has legalized drugs. Any drug you want to take, Oregon has legalized it, but the federal government has not. So
Yeah.
there's federal laws that supersede the Oregon law. So the government could actually come in and start enforcing federal law.
Yeah.
Now, they're not supposed to do those things. They're supposed to leave the states alone. But if you remember Chris Christie, I'm going to remind you of a Republican that talked about this. Denver had passed a law where they legalized marijuana. Chris Christie, while he was running for president, said, I don't care what Colorado has done. It is against federal laws for the possession of marijuana. We're going to enforce these laws. Now, I don't know how he was going to do it. I haven't gotten a clue. But we have DEA, and DEA is the Drug Enforcement, Administration. So they could show up at your doorstep, with federal warrants when you go, well, wait a minute, the state says that this is okay.
Yeah.
Federal law supersedes. So, like I said, you can have these states that say, you know what, we're not going to, let's say they went in and tried to change the Second Amendment. I mean, it would take a lot. But as I said, Joe Biden's already put out a thing that he says, I'm not going to get rid of the Second Amendment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tax on, okay, the first thing that I'm going to tell you to do is turn in your AR 15s. If you don't, then I'm going to tax you for having one. Any
Right.
magazine that holds more than 20 rounds, he did do a 20 round magazine. I'm going to tax you on that too. So, and it's going to be a yearly tax. It's not going to be a one time tax like certain things are now. It's going to be a yearly tax. So you can see that if you have an AR 15 with 5 magazines, you're paying a large sum of money each year just to own that weapon. Now, he
Yeah.
didn't get rid of the Second Amendment. He just threw a tax out there.
Make
Now,
it impossible for average people to have those things.
so who is going to enforce that? You're going to put the IRS in charge of that? IRS can freeze your bank accounts. IRS can freeze your assets.
Oh yeah.
Don't give them that much power, because if you do, they become power hungry.
Yeah.
And so these are things that I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to, and it concerns me, but I think it's even deeper than that. I think it goes so much more deeper. We've only hit the tip of the iceberg of this swamp that is out
Yeah.
there. Because let me give you a good example. Let me give you a good example. Current events. The vice president came out on November the 19th, 2020, and said that there were 2 pharmaceutical companies, one that was ready to ship out stuff and one that was days away from being ready. And they were looking for an FDA approval so that they could get it out. You know what the FDA said? We'll meet on December the 12th, 2020. Pence said November 19th, it's ready to go. He had his generals come up and talk about how they were going to disperse this. They were ready to go to have it in each major city across the United States in 2 weeks. We could be looking at that. If you're going to take this vaccine, you could be taking it now, and Christmas could be starting to go back toward Christmas, but they're not going to meet until December the 12th. Why? Give me one good reason why. Is because they don't want Trump to have a win. They don't want Trump to come up and say, look what we did in Operation Warp Speed. They want the Biden administration to be the one that takes it. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi just the other day said the reason why the stimulus bill has not gone out is because the administration that's in power right now. And so this is deep, folks. You need to understand there are the haves and the have-nots. Kevin, you and I and most people are in the have-nots because we're not a part of the social agenda that is out here. For us to be talking about the way that we're talking about it right now would not go on any social media that's out here right now. We're going to be banned sooner or later. We're going to see it. We're going to see it happen because mention the word civil war, and I am for sure they're going to be looking at us, and we have. But I want to say we have seen 17 states say you violated our constitutional rights by allowing these states to have the mail-in ballots like they did. So if you violate our rights now, how do we protect ourselves against you not violating our rights in the future?
Yeah. And to me, I think that the seat of power should always be as close to the people as you can get it whenever you can do that. So I'm a state's, even if I disagree with what a state is doing, just like free speech, I think the states have or should have more power to do those things. Look at it this way: we have 50 states. We can have 50 separate social experiments. If you enjoy socialism, then go to a socialist state. If you enjoy capitalism, come to a capitalist state, and eventually we'll see which works, who wins, and who loses, and the free market system itself will then make it so the losing side, whoever that is, will adopt more and more of the winning side's ideologies. So we're in a position with 50 states in this union to try something like that. So the the closer we can have the power of government to the people, I think the better off we're going to be. The the federal government was never meant to be as powerful as it is. If you read the Federalist Papers, they were warning against having such a strong federal government. So uh, it's going to come down to, as far as the election goes, it's going to come down to what does the Supreme Court say about mail-in ballots, unsolicited mail-in ballots, and then it's also in that, and the Supreme Court has said these are state issues we're not inclined to get involved in. They're going to be forced to get involved in it probably, but do we allow states to, whether we like it or not, do what they did in the election, and then how then do you restructure things like the electoral college and stuff like that? So I think what we're looking at, I might lose you now that I'm heading back north, but what you might see is like a convention of states, an organized effort for the states to say to the federal government, the authority you hold is the authority we, the people, grant you, and you're overstepping your authority. Now, in this environment, I don't see the federal government just receiving that and taking that admonishment and correcting their behavior. So I think that just like you can't ring the bell of freedom.
All right. Did you cross the Florida line? All right, Kevin, I lost you, so we'll just continue here. Kevin, we've lost you. We see your picture of your mug, but you've frozen up, so we can't hear you at all. So anyway, Kevin, if you can hear me, get back in and log back in, and I'll let you in. All right, let's just kind of finish some of this up of what we're talking about here. I don't have an answer to where we're going with this. I want you to understand. I'm just a guy that I'm just a guy that has just a point of view that God has given me, and I take it to the Word, and I look for what I see in the Word and what is happening here. I see that we as Christians have to pray for those in Georgia. We have to pray for that election, that it's done right, that it's done fair. I want it to be everything that we believe in, what the Constitution protects, and the different rights that we all have. I want it to be that way. But the thing that concerns me is that there is a division among the classes, and it is more than Democrats and Republicans. It is the haves and the have-nots. And when we talk about this, we need to get away from the parties, because I know that there are a lot of people out here who are registered as Democrats that voted for President Trump because they liked what they saw, what he was doing. Before the COVID-19 virus happened, we had record unemployment. We had more money in everybody's pocket. We had all these things that were going in the right direction, religious freedom, all these things, that were happening. Him putting judges in the right courts. But right now, because we're in danger of losing a non-politician person in the White House, we're headed back toward status quo. And what we have seen over the years is just should make any person feel uncomfortable. And I'm really reaching out to the Christians right now. I'm not reaching out to whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. Forget it. Get over that. We're Christians. And what you need to be doing is praying for what is happening right now. We are seeing people that violate the law, that if you and I were to violate these laws, we would get arrested. We would be arrested and prosecuted. We've seen it. There are people out here that are making shady deals in the background, behind closed doors, that are not in our best interest. There are deals being made with foreign countries right now that really threaten the security of our country. And if we as Christians love this country as much as we say we do, we need to stand up and start taking a stand against the things that are being done illegally, immorally, and unconstitutional. Now, I said something earlier about how do we support these organizations that are out here fighting for us. This organization in, I mean, this is a Texas, a lawyer, a part of the Texas system. But I want you to start focusing your attention on organizations that protect Christian and Christian businessmen. Because instead of spending $1.50 on a round of 9mm ammunition, which I'm going to tell you, which if you got more than 1,000 rounds, you have plenty. You don't need any more right now. But take that money and send it to one of these organizations that protect those that are out here fighting the battles. There's a list of them, and we can maybe go out and find this list for you to look at. But there are attorneys all over the place that are fighting for us, and we need to be donating money to them so that they can continue what they do. And we need to stop thinking that, you know what, I need to buy one more AR-15 before the ban goes, because who knows what's going to happen after that. You, that money could be gone next week if they come out and ban like they're talking about doing. You may have spent that money on that AR-15, and what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to turn it over to law enforcement? Trust me, they know that you bought it because you had to fill out the paperwork on it. Are you building your own in a basement? As soon as your neighbor finds out about it and decides that they don't like assault rifles, we see it everywhere. We saw Christmas lights attacked because one person said it reminded them of white supremacy. Really? Christmas lights? Give me a break. You know, this woman had just decorated her house and received a letter that's saying, hey, you need to take your lights down because it reminds me of white supremacy. Where are we going, folks? So we as Christians need to get together and support these Christian organizations that are out here that are protecting us and going to court for us when some of these things are going to happen. Some of these things are going to happen. And so I'm reaching out right now. This is True Christian Talk. Any of these organizations that want to contact us, we would love to put you on. We would love to have you on so you could tell us about what you do and how you protect the churches. We see churches being attacked all over the place. We saw a pastor here in Hillsborough County arrested because he wasn't following CDC guidelines. Well, he was. He had hand sanitizers, required people to wear masks. He was doing all the other stuff, social distancing, but he had too many people in the church. Really? So, you know, we have it out here. Look at what's going on in California with the pastors that are being prosecuted over there for having, too many people in their church, or not doing what the government is saying at that point in time. Look at what happened in Missouri. A pastor who was in his church by himself answered the door without his mask on and was issued a citation. Really? You know, come on. And then threatened that if they weren't following CDC guidelines, they were going to shut them down. It's all over the place. And we need to support these organizations. And we need, like I said, if anybody hears this conversation, please have them come on, because we'd be more than happy to have them talk about what they do. Talk about what they do. Because I promise you, it's going to happen. They're going to come after the churches. They're going to come after your guns. They're going, and please, if you think I'm nuts, then fine, turn me off. Don't listen to this. But if you believe what I'm telling you, because we saw it in Jesus's time of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they kept people who wanted to believe at bay and would not let them have a personal relationship with God. And this is about what is going to happen right now. They're going to start chiseling away at our rights, and we got to figure out what we're going to do. And one of the things we can do is, first off, we have to stay focused on making sure that our elections are legal, that the elections must reach certain criteria before they can accept a ballot. We have to focus on that now. We have to make sure that this goes into effect by 2022. Because if I'm seeing this the right way, there's going to be a red wave instead of a blue wave in 2022. Okay, I could be wrong. I have been wrong before, and if you want to reach out to us and talk to us about it, please comment on our comments. Kevin and I try to reach out. This is on Facebook. For some strange reason, the Zoom did not record it. So I'm going to wait till Kevin gets back, and he's going to put it on YouTube or try to put it on YouTube, and we'll see what's going to happen. Be praying for this country, folks out here. Be praying. Remember what this season is all about. This is about the birth of Christ. This is about where salvation came to earth for us as Christians. This is where peace started. And we need to focus on it, but we need to make sure that we protect those that cannot protect themselves. And we need to speak for those who want us to speak for them. And we need to make sure that we're out here doing what we're supposed to be doing, and that is expanding the kingdom of God. So I'm going to ask Wendy if there's any comments, anybody said anything. If not, we're going to close it up. Next week, we will make sure that Kevin's back in his studio so we can kind of do this the right way. And I'm not trying to figure it out on my own because I apologize. I know how to do a Zoom. I know how to do a Facebook Live, but putting them together is a little Greek to me. So I'm hoping that it worked. I'm hoping that we are live on Facebook and that you'll be able to see this, and that we'll soon be putting it on other platforms. So those that may not have a Facebook account anymore, because I'm staying away from it a little bit, but we will be able to get it out there to you so that you can see what we're doing. I appreciate your time. Like I said, if you disagree with me, please reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you. I'm not going to have an argument with you. I'm not going to get into a screaming match with you. I'm sorry. It's just not going to work. It just doesn't, it does not accomplish anything to scream at each other. It accomplishes nothing at all. A little heat, a little passion I can take. But like I said, if you're going to accuse me of being one of those that I'm not, then I'm not going to listen to you at all. Anything out there, Wendy?
No, we don't have anything out there.
All right. So we're going to close. Be safe. Be blessed. God bless this country. I love you all. And we'll talk to you next week. And if you find Kevin, help him get back to, Holiday, where he's from. And then we'll see y'all next week. Take care.